How to change your oil or why it's so important. Today I am going to show you exactly that on this Subaru right here. I am a automotive technology student at Fox Valley Tech, and today I am going to show you how to change your car's oil. However, before we start turning any wrenches, you will need to get things ready. For all the materials you're going to need, a jack, a microfiber cloth for checking your oil, a light, a funnel, a drain pan, jack stands, a torque wrench, a socket, potentially the extension. For this car we're going to need it, a breaker bar, or you could use a ratchet as well. The breaker bar just makes it easier on your hands, your oil, and your oil filter. That's all you really need. It doesn't take a whole lot to actually change your oil. Before you start doing anything, the first thing you want to do is make sure that the vehicle is up to operating temperature. As you can see right now, it is too cold to actually do the oil change, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and take it for a drive, and I will be right back. Now we've got the vehicle up to running temperature. As you can see, this gauge right here is in the middle, so that means we are good to start our oil change. Before you just lift the vehicle, it is important to identify the jack points of the vehicle. In this case, the front jack point is underneath the front bumper, right here. It's going to be this metal piece. And then in the rear, we will be lifting from the rear differential on the back, way back in there. It'll be on that big silver thing. Before you lift the car, it's important to set the parking brake too, so when you lift the front end off the ground, the rear end doesn't roll back and the car falls off the jack or the jack stands. So we'll do that right now. So as you can see, now the parking brake is engaged. You can see I've got the jack positioned on the jack point right there on the front, and then we can start lifting up the car. Have the front of the car lifted off the ground. You take the jack stands, and on this car you'll position them right between these two notches here. So you slide that right under there, then you go over to the other side and you do the same thing. So once you have the jack stands in position, you are able to slowly lower the car onto them. And it's important to keep an eye on it to make sure nothing falls or is going down at a weird angle. Now the car is fully resting on the jack stands. So then, once we have the front end lifted, we just start lifting up the rear, like so. So, just like we did with the front, we line up the jack stands in the rear, and then we slowly lower the car. Now that the entire car is supported by the jack stands, you can safely remove the jack. And when the car is on jack stands, it is completely safe to be under. You shouldn't worry about it falling, but you should still use caution when around the vehicle. So, once you have the car lifted, you can then begin to drain the oil, firstly by removing the drain plug. The drain plug cracked loose, you finish loosening it by hand while keeping a pressure toward the oil pan in so it doesn't, well, I dropped it on myself, but you get the point. So then you let it all drain into the drain pan. So while the oil's draining, what you can do is remove the filter and let that hot drain in your oil pan with the oil. Once you have the old filter off, you can take the new filter here, and you gotta make sure to lubricate this O-ring here. So I use the new oil. Some people use the old oil. It doesn't really matter. It's just to make sure that when you put the oil filter back on, it doesn't pinch it so that you're not leaking oil. Just take the new filter, put it on the threads. Make sure you don't cross thread it, because then you would need, on this car, a new filler neck, but on a lot of cars it threads right into the engine block. So you got to be very careful and make sure it's nice and tight, because you don't want it falling off. If it falls off and you leak oil, you could possibly blow the engine, and that would not be good, and it's very expensive to fix. So once you have the new filter on, you can take your oil drain plug and put it back in. Once again, making sure not to cross thread, because then you would end up having to buy a new oil pan for your engine. So you thread that in there, get it finger tight. Once you have the drain plug in hand tight, what you'll want to do is you'll want to take a torque wrench set to 33 foot-pounds for this car in particular. That's pretty high for a lot of cars. Most cars you'll see probably around 18 to 20 foot-pounds. So then we will take the torque wrench, let it click. I usually click it 3 times just to verify that it is indeed at torque. Then remove the torque wrench, and your drain plug should be in there tight. And the process is to actually fill the oil and use the new stuff. For this vehicle, I'm using full synthetic OW20 because that's what the manufacturer recommends. This is probably going to be good for about 5,000 to 7,000 miles. We're going to go 5,000 on the low side just to make sure that this engine has enough protection and that we're not running the oil too long. So then we will start filling the engine. So once you've filled up the oil or gotten it close, what you'll do is you'll actually get in the car and you will start the engine for just a few seconds. Listen for any weird noises and make sure that your oil circulates through your oil filter. So it's about 3, 4, 5, about 5, 10 seconds. Then shut it off. And then you go and you check your oil level. Well, that should be good, about good for our oil level. So what we'll do then is put the dipstick back in and start the car, make sure it runs good. And then we will get it back on the ground and get it out of here. And we just slowly lower the vehicle. You don't want to do it too fast, otherwise it might fall on the front. Right, then we just pull the jack out and do the same on the front. Lower the front of the car down to the ground. And that is it. So, then you just close the hood, and you're done. It's that simple. A lot of people will think that doing an oil change is something that's incredibly difficult, but in reality, it's very simple and a lot of people can do it at home. Problem is, nowadays, everyone is so crammed for time, it's easier and more worth their time to just bring it to someone else to do it. So, now you know how to change your oil. If you have any questions, you can send me a message, and I thank you all for watching.